Right, this is the last night's lesson with the oil pastels. As much about technique as it is about anything else. So whenever technique's involved in it, there is another dimension of complication. But the purity of the drawing aspect of it is probably the foundation of it. So it's all drawing, but drawing in respect to the observation of the elements, i.e. tones or colours, as well as relationships, distances, shapes, sizes, all that sort of thing, but drawing at a much more complicated layer. So diving straight into using mediums sometimes can be complicated and probably not the best way to go about doing it. So I'm going to just draw something with one of these, like the thing I did the other day with this Conte pencil thing, only because I'm just starting a drawing. There are so many ways that people do it. I've just seen someone doing it now, and it's very kind of deliberate and precise, and probably the most common way of doing it. I'm going to try and get this a bit squarer. My way, you'll see, it's built mostly on the dots thing. So I'm going to draw this guy, for instance. So I look for the key elements, the key indicators as to where things are. So I'm looking at, but only in terms of threes, because if I get complicated by, it's between there and there, I will get complicated, but initially let me just get the basic anchors in place. People will do this by drawing lines across things and do that kind of thing. They'll do the same thing. But for me, it is just the locations of these dots. So these positions is all I'm bothered about. The trouble with putting lines on things is that you're establishing the angle of things. People talk about tilts or whatever, and so by doing that, on the paper, you're assuming you're going to be able to get that tilt right, and that that centre line right. It takes a lot of skill to do that. It takes a lot of practice to do that. It's the same with the circles. Putting a circle around the body of the head there, and then ellipses around the sides, right? That takes skill. It takes skill to be able to draw circles. But if you've got dots of things, this is the thing. You'll see me do it in a minute. And the reason why I do it the way I do it is because it can do that. I am not tying myself down to a line. I'm not tying myself down to an angle. And or that angle. The thing about angles, and people try and establish these early on, is that it's not that tilt you want to be concerned with. It's the relationship of those elements to the horizontal, right? So, and the horizontal I've got as a constant in my paper. My paper, I can always see it's always there. So if I can make a imaginary horizontal comparison, then I can see how far the eye drops down on that side and how far it doesn't drop on that side. Immediately, I'm able to establish the tilt because I can see how far they drop from horizontal. The same with vertical things. So I can, if I draw an imaginary horizontal line, I can see how far the nose tilts, and it's not an awful lot, but I can see how far it is off horizontal, off vertical. And so basically, by not doing those lines, you give yourself more wiggle room. You give you more room to manoeuvre things around. You'll see me move eyes up and down and things, and that's because I'm not tying myself. Because what will happen is you tie yourself to a definite. You work that up, and then suddenly realise it's in the wrong place. But you put a lot of work into doing that. If you've committed to, say, pencil or some medium, there might be a lot of work in it. And if you're one of those people that do things piecemeal, bit at a time, it's going to be really hard. You're going to make things. The point of this is that you need to respond to your subject as quickly as possible, and and that's to cannot capture the essence. It's what Robert Enright said about the, work as fast as you can. It's that thing, and it's nothing to do with, learning your skills and all the rest of it, so that you can become really quick at doing this. Those 10-minute, 12-minute, 15-minute poses, whatever they do. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with that your connection with the subject is instant. It's an instant thing. If you it's just a human thing. We can all connect with other humans, and it's that you need to embody in your initial connection with the your initial response with the subject or to the subject. So when I do this investigation, if you like, and I'm trying to find things where they are, I might not get them right first time. The thing is that this is the time when I first start scribbling on the page. That's the point when I want to make all the mistakes. I don't want to make mistakes at the end. I want to make mistakes when I'm doing my initial scribbling. So I don't. And by the way, this is not scribbling. I use that word as a sort of general description of what I'm doing. But this is not scribble drawing. Don't get that end of the stick as some people tend to do. It's not. I'm not doing that. That. Circular thing that people do. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to find the top of his forehead there when it hits his hair, and where his hair comes up then. I'm trying to find the width of things, and I'm trying to find where things end. This is what I'm doing. This is not at all like what you're seeing. This is the thing about I see all these many ways of doing it, and I prefer this way because it's more, and particularly when it's using a simple tool like this. The advantage of this is it's not a pencil for a start off, whereas with a pencil it would be almost like a continuous line, if you know what I mean, in terms of its variance. This has thick and thin qualities, and it also has hard and soft qualities, because pastels are closer to charcoal. But it's simple in that charcoal would require more. Again, it's one of those, if the medium requires more consideration, it just gets in the way of this initial stage. So if you're learning to draw, it's better to use a medium that doesn't get in the way. But what I'm doing now is, as I say, I'm just figuring out where things are going to fall. I'm looking at the alignments. I'm just trying to figure out where everything's going to end up, if you like. And if it just gives me a few pointers of where things should be. This is the wrong marks tell you where the right marks are attitude. If I can get just a few of the things right, I can fix them. And with a medium like this, it's fairly easy to fix. Plus, there is no need to get too bogged down by the perfection element of it at this stage. This is just about your response. It is just purely about your response. So that's where I am now, is kind of the initial figuring out of where things are going to lie. So have I got the nose to the forehead quite right? No, not really. It was that hair right when it comes down there. Is the top of his hair there? Is that right? So the next stage is for me to go around and fix those things. Sometimes I'll just dive. This will be enough for me to work from. But this is not drawing, by the way. This is not the drawing stage. This is not construction, but it's preparation. This is what it is. It's kind of foundational stuff, but it's not construction. Construction is something else, and that's a different way of drawing. And the construction methods that are out there are many construction methods. They take a completely different route. So it is more accurate measurement and a bit less response. The response aspect of it tends to come afterwards, after the construction's been done. So the next thing for me really when I'm doing this is because I've got a rough idea where all the elements should start and finish, or where they should be located. The next thing for me was always to look for the shapes. So the shape of that eye and the overall shape of that eye is what concerns me. And I'm not really bothered about putting a line around it. I'm going to use tones to find that shape. I'm going to scribble some tone into, knowing that it's going to ultimately be all tonally treated. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use tones to actually find the shapes based on the location of things. Obviously, all of this happens at lightning speed when I'm doing it, but I'm trying to do it as methodically as possible, so you can see what's happening. I'd also say that this is really important, that at the beginning of the portrait, the preparation stage of the portrait, of the drawing, is a mindset stage. Really, you've got to really feel that character. You've got to really connect with that character. It's what you're going to embed within that, or embody within the portrait. It's what drives the portrait, the way that you feel about this character. So that one thing is that's the first place to start. So you're going to start with this face and relate to this face. This is the one thing about choosing subjects or setting up models, or finding models. You have to be moved to paint them or draw them. You've got to be. If you can't connect to that individual, there's not something about that individual, and often it's the case that if it's from life, it's good to talk to these people, to get to know these people, and connect with their soul, because it's that you need to be able to draw. If you're just turning up and this is some stranger that you've never met before, it's going to be a lot harder to connect with them than if you'd actually sat and talked to them for a while and got to know them and got to know their life and got to know what motivates them and got to know, as I say, their soul, because that's what ultimately you're trying to capture in the portrait. So once that's happened, once you've got to know that soul, you will always return to that soul when you're drawing or painting them. That's what you should do. You should always, because there will be times when it suddenly becomes a mechanical process, and at the point it becomes a mechanical process, you run the risk of losing the essence, because it's just about the doing. All of a sudden it's just about whether the mark's in the right direction or whether you're blending it properly. You don't want that. You don't want the it to become just a skill execution of skills. It's not why we do it. It's the difference between great portraits and normal portraits and good portraits, is this element of humanity, the soul aspect of it. If it doesn't have that, then it's just a good drawing. And you kind of want it to be more than just a good drawing, don't you? Always. The thing about it is, the skill thing, which is what people would denote as good drawing, is if you do it from a point of view of human connection, the skills will be relevant to that human connection. You will develop skills that allow you to manifest your response. It will naturally occur, and you'll not be aware of it happening. This is the thing about practice. Practice is when you know that you're developing skills, and you're deliberately developing those skills, and you end up with skills that you feel you must use. And often people will say, "Oh, you need those skills," and before you start to draw portraits or apply, your response. You'll need the skills before you do. You don't need the skills beforehand. You need to understand what makes a great portrait. I think the primary skills you're going to need are going to be proper observation, proper seeing, because that's the thing that people forget how to do. Which is you can already do it. It's just you've forgotten how to do it. So the other one is you need to connect to another human, to relate to that human, to be able to empathise with them and their soul. You can already do that. You'll be doing it all your life. So there's two skills you've already got. And then the other one is just being able to manipulate your limbs, if you like. You've always been able to do that. It's just that you spent your life pushing a mouse around or whatever, and the motor skills that you used to have as a child and forgot what they are have just not been used. They're all dormant. So you've got to rekindle that in your I suppose in a physical way, you've got to get back to the point where you could move things around precisely and accurately. So they're all skills that you already have. Some of them are not; they're just dormant. That's all. The people connection skill, which is the most important thing, it doesn't go away that, and it doesn't unless you're not a nice person. You'll always be able to connect with another human and relate to their soul. It's not so you work. You know, how many people do you meet and you can detect their mood? It's not even strangers. So that's what you need to tap into. But as I said, the second stage of this investigative kind of approach is this shape identification thing. And in the process of connecting the shapes, this is what I've done now, finding the shapes and using the, let me just sharpen this, and using the tones to find them, not trying to outline shapes. You inadvertently, because of the observational side of things, bear in mind right from the get-go, apart from the feeling, your feeling towards the subject driving the way that you make marks and how you make marks and so on and so forth. Apart from that, your observation has been noting exactly what's happening in terms of not just in terms of location, but in terms of the tone. So as you're, the forms of the tones. So as you're trying to find the shapes, you're naturally applying more pressure to certain places, because what you're doing is that, like I've just done it there with the nose. What you're doing as you get that, I'm confirming that's in the right place. It wasn't in the right place before, but as I'm getting more and more refined, then all of a sudden it seems it's in the right place, and I'm prepared to make, the commitment to it. I didn't have to commit to it to start with, which is what normally would happen. But as I said, naturally, as you're doing this, as you're finding the shapes, it becomes the tonality, the forms suddenly appear without really any kind of conscious decision. That's how I'm going to blend from there to there. There's none of that. You're not thinking about that at this stage. You're just thinking about finding the shapes. But as I said, naturally, you're actually applying tones to qualify the shapes and the elements within the shapes, and that then makes it look like the shapes are then appearing. And as that happens, and you're confirming that things are right, you become more and more confident that what's happening is correct, and then your marks become more purposeful and more determined and accurate, because your confidence is building as you can see the face developing. So I always think of it as an evolution of the portrait, as opposed to it being a staged kind of approach. So I'm gradually finding the face. And the other thing about it is, as well, I was saying about the wrongness thing, is that you can be modifying all the time and tweaking and moving things around, and this is not quite wide enough. Obviously, if it's a charcoal pencil, it's a bit difficult to rub out these things, but you can do it as you've just seen me doing it. But maybe using charcoal, in which case you could rub things out and move things around and just start to bring a little bit more accuracy into it. But that's it. I can't really simplify it anymore. This is just another way of approaching this. It's not the way of doing it, because, as I say, there are many ways to start a portrait, and or to start a drawing full stop, and you'll see people doing a lot of mechanicking to start with, and engineering lines and all that kind of stuff, and that's equally as effective. I do think that the more traditional ways of doing it are to require more learning. I think because it's such a craft-based approach. You have to learn how to do it properly. So there is a little bit more learning. So if that's the route that you take, you just be aware that it's going to be a bit more effort, a bit more time before you get to a point where you can produce a decent portrait. But as I said, there's many ways to skin a cat, and that's I think that's the truth of it. It's whatever suits you. But I find that whether if I can go through the stages I've spoke about, which is to identify the parameters, if you like, the limits, either as dots, marks, scribbles, whatever. If I can do that, then I can gradually hone and refine the thing. One of the things I would say about this particular, which is my thing anyway, which is what I like, is that there is a serendipitous element to it. So on the journey to find the marks that you think you need, you'll find marks that you want. You'll find marks that you need. So you find that it's this thing about making marks that you didn't intend to make often being better than the marks that you did intend to make, because they've got the life in them. Because in this process, right at this beginning stage, all I'm concerned with is my connection with this human, finding the life in this face. That's all I'm concerned with. So that's manifested in the marks that I make, even though I'm not trying to do that, even though it's not a deliberate thing. Never considered the marks, or it's just happening. And like I say, it's a serendipitous thing. But that's the beauty of doing it this way. It's not predictable, and it's not contrived, and it's not deliberate, but it's got lots of life and spontaneity. The only thing I would say about that approach is that you run the risk of it not manifesting as you think it should manifest. It should always work. That's the thing. It should always work, because you should never have a perception of what it's going to do or what it's going to look like. You should never have that preconceived idea of how it's going to turn out. It's just going to turn out the way it turns out. That's it. You've got to accept that. And whatever it does, live with it, love it, and live with it. But there is an element of it. If you don't stick to that zero expectation thing, there's a chance that it will fail. It will not capture. And I normally talk about those being my misfires, which is when for some reason during the process, and it's often with demanding mediums like these, although I'm getting to a point where I don't really care about the medium anymore. So with these things, I'm fed up with them now, so I'm not going to do them anymore, but for a while anyway. But if it's a demanding medium, it can often pull you towards the execution, and the execution is not the deciding factor, in a good portrait. There are too many people that can do great portraits that are just well executed, and they're just great portraits, or good portraits, should we say. Great portraits have more than just execution. There's got to be more than execution in a great portrait, but that's the problem. If you have a more productive or production orientated approach, the problem is that you could disconnect from the subject, and consequently it becomes just about the production, and all of a sudden you're on a different road. And as I said, it happens sometimes to me, especially when the medium is a little bit more demanding than a simple pencil, which is why, as I said, these pencils are great for doing this. And they're great because they're soft, and as you can see, you can get different. You can build up the values quite easily, as if it was charcoal. But yeah, I using them for colouring in and all the rest of it, I've no idea. I don't think that I use these for the coloured pencil stuff that I used to do. I think they might have been too soft. I wanted more precision than these. So in that, a friend of mine just started using these. I think that he called them polychromatic. I don't know whether, but in saying that thing there, which was a coloured pencil drawing, the precision, the lines in that, this would not do that. Those tiny little lines on the knife there. I don't know if you can focus on that. Focus, is it focusing? No. And then the tiny little marks in there to build up that tone. The actual precision of that cup there the outer precision, that circle there, right, would not have done this. And all that's done by hand. There's none of, I may have trammelled it, I doubt it, but it being it being an ellipse. But that kind of precision needs a different kind of pencil. That is and obviously there's a scale aspect to it as well. So working at this size, this pencil would not work. So obviously working at this side, I needed something that would sharpen to a point. But as I said, these Conte pastel pencils live somewhere between a pencil and charcoal. That's probably what it is. I also like the different colours as well. I think I think this is probably the best of the colours that I've done. But I've used blues and greens. The green ones are a bit wild because it's a strange kind of luminous, that PPE green. Not pea green, it's actually PPE green. The stuff that road work, people working their roads wear, that kind of green, which is a weird colour to draw with. But yeah, so that's it. I mean, you take it as far as you want when you get to this sort of stage, and if you don't want to follow it through, you don't have to. But the main thing is that you start from a point of investigation. Not a point of confirmation. I don't know, and all that investigation is to do with my connection with the subject, my feeling about them, my connection with their mood. It's all of that is the underlying driver behind all this. There is an element of what's important thing. So when you draw a face, generally I'd say, what is it that moves you about that face? And people say, oh, it's eyes or whatever, or it's his hair or his beard or whatever. So there's your focus. As soon as you've decided what it is that makes this face, whatever it is that made you want to draw them or paint them, that's your focus. So that's really all you're concerned with. Anything around that is going to detract from the focus, whatever it is that's important. That's where you want to focus your attention. So. But all of that's a kind of drawing technique thing to talk about that. But all of that is overridden by the way you feel about somebody, because the way you feel about the subject is the understanding the priorities, because it's where you feel about them. That's ultimately the priority that you're going to focus on. But if you want to talk about it in terms of production, you could say that is it the one thing? Is his eyes, his beard, his hair, or whatever? And that's production wise where you'd focus. And that's it. It's not, as I said, it's not complicated to understand. It's not. There's no need to talk about geometry or anatomy or whatever else. These are just a bunch of shapes that I've identified that form this face. But ultimately those shapes and those marks are all driven by the way I feel about this face. And that's it. So I love you and leave you. And I just wanted to talk about starting a portrait.